Hello and welcome, everyone. Good evening. My name is Rachel Chanette. I am one of the assistant directors here in the Office of Admissions. I use she and her pronouns. I'm so thrilled to have folks here today to kick off the first of our virtual series of perspectives. I am thrilled to be in such wonderful company tonight to explain to our audience what is Montserrat, the mystery of. So with that, I would like to introduce Professor Ludden, the director of the Montserrat program.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm Alison Ludden. I am the director of Montserrat. I'm also a professor in the psychology department, and I teach courses on psychology of adolescence and developmental psychology and adolescent health. So I have a great interest in students in high school. So I'm so pleased to be with you here tonight, and I'll be talking about the Montserrat program. We'll also have our sophomores here who've agreed to help us out. They're Montserrat Ambassadors. So I'm very, very appreciative of all they bring to the Montserrat program. They help out with our programming. They hold office hours. They do a lot of heavy lifting in the Montserrat program, and we're so pleased to have them with us tonight. So I'm gonna first pass it off to Anna.
Thank you, Professor Ludden. My name is Anna Lee. I use she, her pronouns, and it's an absolute pleasure to get to speak with you all tonight and hear about all the questions you might have about Montserrat. So I'm currently a sophomore along with everyone else. I'm majoring in English, and I thoroughly enjoyed my Montserrat experience last year. So just to give you a bit of background, I was in the Contemporary Challenges cluster and in the course Social Lives of Muslim Youth under the instruction of Professor Vicky Langor of the Political Science Department. We got to learn all sorts of current events pertaining to the Middle East and affecting not only policymakers, but civilians in those difficult positions. And just to wrap up really quick, I think the beauty of Montserrat is that you get a wealth of knowledge and resources that are not readily available to many other first years at many other institutions. And clearly we entered Montserrat at a very strange and vulnerable time for a lot of the world, but that doesn't excuse a lot of the other problems that happen around the world concurrently. So that being said, I'll pass it on to the next person. Connie, would you like to go next?
Hi, everybody. My name is Connie Perez. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently a sophomore at the college. I study anthropology with a concentration in Africana studies. For Montserrat, I was also in the Global Society cluster. I studied the Writing the Self with Professor Locos, which was Spanish and theater. I agree with everything that Anna said. It was very interesting to be in a space where you didn't know people and you got to show a different side of yourself. And I can pass it to Ariana.
Hi guys, my name is Ariana. I'm a sophomore at the college. I'm an English major, education minor. And my Montserrat last year was Finding God in All Things with Father Clark and the Divine Cluster. I also really did enjoy my Montserrat experience. I made a lot of friends that I'm still in touch with now, and I really loved all the events that we got to go to. So it's really good to be here to speak with you guys, and I'm really excited and hope that you choose to come to Holy Cross. And I'm going to pass it off to Nicole.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole. I use she, her pronouns. From my Montserrat, I was in the core questions cluster with Professor Chichavaki. Our first semester was questions for virtue, and our second semester was quest for happiness. And my Montserrat experience was honestly really amazing. It was really a difficult time, especially that we were being online, and it was just such a great place for us to unwind and truly understand each other, and truly I feel like I got the best Holy Cross experience out of my Montserrat cluster, especially being that it was the entire year. I really got to bond with the students in my class, and I'm still friends with most of them to this day, and we still keep in touch. It's awesome. And I'll pass it to Alana.
Hi, my name's Alanya. I'm a sophomore. I use she, her pronouns. I was in the Contemporary Challenges cluster, and my Montserrat was called Gandhi, MLK, and Nonviolence. Our first semester was called Decolonizing India. and it was with Professor Ruperketti. Our first semester was about Gandhi and learning about decolonizing India. And then the second semester was called Visions of Justice. And we talked about MLK and sort of like the evolution of slavery and, you know, all that stuff in the United States. So it was interesting. We compared sort of marginalization in India and then marginalization in the United States. Was a really interesting comparison to make. And I really got a lot out of the program. Professor Ruperketti's done a lot for me. He's wrote a recommendation for me just now as I'm applying to go to Spain next semester. So I think there's a lot that you can get out of the Montserrat program, and I'm really happy to be here representing it. And I'll pass it back to Professor Ludden.
Thanks, Alanya. All right, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a background on kind of the logistics of Montserrat, and then we'll pass it back to these wonderful sophomore women, and we'll see, you know, what they want to highlight about the program after I give you guys this background. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because, of course, I made a little PowerPoint here. Oops. Let's see. Share screen. Here we go. Can you guys see some mountains? All right, so Montserrat is named for a mountain range is in Spain where St. Ignatius laid down his sword and he committed his life to his faith and to his education. And we think that, you know, this is a time when you guys would be laying down your, you know, setting your roots when you set off to college. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our program. It's our first year seminar. So all students take the Montserrat Seminar. It's a small interdisciplinary seminar. So you've heard a little bit about each one of these classes, and you can hear that they incorporate multiple perspectives. You've got the same students in the same class for the full year, and you've got 16 or 17 students in your class. So it's a nice small class. You really get to know people, and you pursue a topic in depth. And there are a lot of opportunities for out of the classroom learning. So even though we were remote last year, many professors brought in people to speak from all around the world. They did virtual visits, different places. And this year we're doing a lot of field trips off campus, getting into Worcester, going to performances at Mechanics Hall here in Worcester, or getting out to the Worcester Art Museum, or going for a hike up a mountain, up Mount Wachusett. So there are a lot of opportunities to get out of the classroom, but also off campus and into the community. Through this Montserrat Seminar, you'll gain a strong foundation in the liberal arts. So we'll focus on writing, on public speaking, on doing research, really digging in with the topic. And you live with students in your class. So it's not surprising that these students have talked about how their Montserrat friends have stayed their friends over time, because you really get to know people because you're in class with them, but then you're also living with them in the dorms. So they've talked about our different clusters. We have the natural world cluster. Whoops, back. There we go. Sorry about that. Natural world cluster, the global society cluster, contemporary challenges, core human questions, the divine cluster, and the self cluster. So all of our seminars are nested within these clusters. You can find out more about the clusters and the seminars on our website. So that's www.holycross.edu. Let me see, I can paste that into the chat for folks, if you guys want that. Oops, to the panelists. How do I get that out to everyone else? Can I do that? Everyone, there we go. Let me put that out to everyone, if I can do that. Okay, now let me get back to my share screen. Did I lose it? Share. Okay, view slideshow. Oh no. Okay, so you guys got the website? All right. So all of our seminars, if you consider this to be a seminar, so you've got all of our seminars are nested within a particular cluster. Okay, and then those clusters live in a particular dorm. This year we have 4 different dorms that our first year students are living in, and everybody, say in the natural world cluster, lives in the same dorm. Okay, all of the seminars within the cluster share a common theme. So for example, for the natural world this year, the theme is ecologies of hope. So all of the seminars address this theme in some way. And then in terms of events and experiences, everybody in the cluster may go to a talk. Okay, they may go to a museum, or they may go for a hike in the woods together, or they may share a common reading. So it varies across clusters. It varies from year to year. And here are some examples of the different classes within the natural world cluster. So they're not all on kind of natural science. In fact, you'll see here, there's only one class within the natural world cluster that's a natural science class. Every class or every seminar has a common area requirement associated with it. So every Montserrat class satisfies a requirement for the college. So for example, unnatural food in America satisfies a history common area requirement. Writing the environment satisfies a literature common area requirement. Environmental ethics, a philosophy common area requirement. And music, science, sound, and the environment satisfies an arts requirement. So you can see there's quite a range. All of our clusters are multidisciplinary, so students are studying different topics around this theme within their clusters. When it comes to selecting your classes, if you decide to come to Holy Cross, you would select six seminars across a bunch of different clusters, and then you get one of those seminars. And so you know, there's lots of different opportunities, lots of different topics. But I want to stop talking and turn it back to our students to see if they'd like to add some further details on their experiences.
Something that I just want to say that I really appreciated about my experience was I knew for the most part going into my time at Holy Cross that I wanted to major in English, but my Montserrat program was more so like political science and history focused. But regardless, I feel like I gained so much. Like my writing improved exponentially in that time frame, and I feel like if I hadn't sort of branched out into something that wasn't necessarily my focus, I would have missed out on such a great experience, and it really made me like a much more nuanced student and writer. So that's something that I think is great about the program, is it's an opportunity to take a class you wouldn't necessarily take, but you can still get so much out of it, even if it's not in your like focused discipline. So I really appreciate that.
Mimi, to answer your question, all freshmen do participate in the Montserrat program. It's not necessarily a choice. I think the choice lies in which six you circle, but even at that, it's still kind of random which one that you're assigned to. Something I really liked about the Montserrat program is that it was a year long, so you kind of get used to the people that you're with, and those friendships really do form because you're going through your first semesters at college together, and so you guys are both going through like the same struggle, and your professors really do work with you because they understand like this is a transition period. So don't ever feel like you're alone in like your transition from high school to college.
I would love to chime in here, and first and foremost to thank everyone, not only Professor Ludden for giving that wonderful outline into just the reason why Montserrat has its namesake and just an outline into how the program works, but also hearing just a little bit into our students' experiences into the clusters that they were involved in. Now, I want to remind everyone that there is the Q&A function, and feel free to share your questions there along with the chat if there is anything on your mind. And I wanted to pose a question to the group about the relationship with Montserrat and community. Connie, you just pointed out a really great fact that you're with folks for the entire year. And also we've mentioned the fact that it does inform your housing. Could folks talk a little bit about the relationship with Montserrat and how you found community at Holy Cross?
Personally, my roommate was also in my Montserrat, which is what happens for most people. And the bond that we were able to form throughout that was just like, it was honestly like special because it's not just like having a different class with that person. It's like having a bonding class. So like we just had like a different level of relationship that we didn't have with the rest of our friends in the sense that we could like discuss these topics to like a further like just like outside the classroom. We were actually excited to do it as well. Like for example, like mine was Quest for Virtue and Quest for Happiness. And you have some like really thought-provoking questions throughout that. And to be able to like discuss that with someone who's like living with you, I still have this deep connection with her. I'm her roommate this year as well. And it's just a connection that I really think is unique to the Montserrat program.
I want to also mention that Montserrat is also really good with connecting you with the Worcester community as well. We've had a lot of speakers kind of talk in our Montserrat from who worked in Worcester, which was really cool. I personally didn't get to experience my CBL because I was remote, but CBL or community-based learning is also sometimes a part of your Montserrat, and that's also really cool because you get to really connect with the people in Worcester. You learn a lot about the people there. And so you're connecting with the people in your class, but you're also connecting with the people outside of Holy Cross.
Yes, quite a few of our Montserrat courses are community-based, involve community-based learning where you're spending time each week out in the community. And even if you don't have that, what we call CBL component, many of the cluster events involve getting into the community. So whether it's a walking tour of the city where you look at all the fantastic murals that we have in the city, or you're visiting Worcester Market or heading to the museum, many classes and many seminars, and then also many of the clusters spend time in the city, which I think is fantastic.
Well, that's a really great point, and I really appreciate just mentioning the fact that, you know, as Holy Cross, we have such a vibrant community here on campus, here on the Hill, but we're also, you know, part of a really wonderful, vibrant city of Worcester. It's right at our doorstep, and Montserrat is really often the vehicle, if folks aren't already introduced or getting involved in the city, a really natural way to do so. I wanted to ask now about kind of the experience now, acknowledging that you are sophomores. So do you feel that there is a particular aspect of Montserrat that really helped you adjust to life at Holy Cross? It can be academic or otherwise.
Yeah, I would definitely like to say that college, or any college for that matter, is going to be a bit of a transition. And I think that's something anyone in the audience might expect. But something nice about Montserrat, and something that I think a lot of colleges might not have in that matter, is that it is something that you can see as like a baseline. So is everything else in your college life might be a bit of a transition, everything else might be a bit of a change, even if that's on a semester basis. You can expect your Montserrat to be something that stays relatively stable. So it's something to ground you, something that you can look forward to and feel safe in, regardless if something else is bothering you, whether that be academic, social, etc. And I also think academically, it'll definitely help you. I think high school academics and college academics, while not necessarily one is harder than the other, they're definitely different. So just getting to adjust to that in a more supportive setting, I'd say, is integral in your adjustment to Holy Cross, if that answers your question.
When faculty are designing their courses, I tell them, you know, when you look at your syllabus, cut some things out, because you want to make sure you have that time and that space in your syllabus to talk about what's going on in campus, what's going on in the world, what's going on in there, in the students' lives. I remember the first time I taught in Montserrat, I was like, what's going on, everyone? They're like, oh, we had housing today, for housing for sophomore year. And I was like, okay, let's talk about it, right? And it's a type of class where you don't have this set content. Like if you're in, say, Psych 100, Psychology 100, there's certain content that you need to cover every day. Whereas in Montserrat, you can just say, okay, stop. We're going to talk about why you guys all look like, something just happened, right? And you can actually, you take the time, and really faculty are encouraged to do that, and to address the kinds of things that are, going on, the joys and the challenges of being a first year student.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I wanted to kind of nod to the fact that we are here tonight for this discussion as part of our Perspectives series. And so for, that context, I wanted to ask folks, has your perspective in any way been changed by Montserrat, or how has your perspectives been influenced? It is a transformative experience, and I'm wanting to hear about how you have personally been shaped by those experiences in your first year.
Personally, I even wrote my closing reflection on this in Montserrat, how I was in a philosophy Montserrat, and just my way of thinking in general, like my outlook on everything changed, because like I had a very closed-minded way of even questioning the world. Like I went into the Montserrat expecting like an answer, because it was like quest for life. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure it out. But if anything, I just left with 20 more questions, and it was just honestly like an awesome way to like open up my mind and really like engage in the fact that it's like no longer just like high school and memorization. It's like questioning back, like not just accepting answers and getting fed information. Like I'm actually starting to be super analytical, and like it's something that continues to happen throughout my experience here at Holy Cross, but it definitely was completely shaped throughout Montserrat.
I definitely agree with Nicole. I think something else that comes with that is just Montserrat prepares you just for the rigor and the independence that you get once you're at school. I think that the course is designed to help you figure out, how you want to handle your coursework. How does that work for you? What does that look like for you? And then as for the independence, like it's kind of the first times where you're getting assignments where your teacher is not on you, and like you have to do it on your own, and you have to actually sit here and ask for help. So I would say like you definitely see your growth even between the first 2 semesters, and your professors would definitely also tell you this as well. They'll see like how you adapt and cultivate to the environment.
Yeah, something that I would definitely say is that coming into college, I was sort of under the mindset that like a lot of homework means you're not going to have fun in the class. And I think the Montserrat program does a really good job of just eliminating that perception. I'll be honest, my Montserrat was my most intense class. I had a lot of homework, a lot of reading, but it was all necessary to make sure that once we got into the classroom, our conversations could be really complex and interesting. And, everyone could be everyone sort of was able to have really be confident in their conversations. Whereas when you go into class and you don't know what's happening, people aren't going to participate. So I learned sort of when you put in the work and you can start to appreciate the work and find it enjoyable. And I learned that in my Montserrat course, and I was able to then apply that to my other courses. And it sort of made my whole freshman year less stressful and less overwhelming, like than compared to how I thought it was going to be coming into the year.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. And just to answer your question, Julia, I see it in the Q&A. Is the coursework and the assignments also group-based? So I think it certainly depends on the sort of course that you have, but I'd say there's a good mixture of both individual and group-based assignments. And I think the purpose behind that is to integrate you into both. So for example, last year, we did this group project across multiple Montserrat courses. So it wasn't just with our own course, but it was with other people from the Contemporary Challenges cluster. And we all decided to come together and come up with a project or presentation about how we could clean up the river that's kind of nearby our school. It's called the Blackstone River, and how we could best cater that to the Worcester Native community, because Holy Cross is on Native lands. So while you will be asked to do a lot of independent projects, whether that be essays or like discussion questions, you will also be asked to interact with a plethora of different people, not just within your class, but across different courses as well, if that answers your question.
I really appreciate, Anna, you sharing that acknowledgement that Holy Cross, our community, is indeed on Nipmuc territory. There actually is some really interesting information, if you're curious, to check out the 1620 to 2020 project, something that naturally comes up in conversation anyhow, and I think it's a really wonderful way just to mark this time. And also just making a note that we're almost out of time. So if you have any final questions to share, thank you for the questions that have been coming in. It's been really wonderful to hear what's been on your mind. If there are any final thoughts, please feel free to share them. But for the time being, I wanted to give a big thank you once again to our tremendous panelists, as well as Professor Ludden, for being such a tremendous source of support for our students for this program. Our student representatives here have done such a wonderful job outlining the program. And hopefully by this point, you get a sense the fact that this is something that is quite personal as much as it is something that is community experience as well. So with that being said, I'd like to ask our panelists a final question to close us off. If I could challenge you to summarize your Montserrat experience in a word or two, what comes to mind and why would you describe using that verbiage?
I don't mind going first. I would say my experience was inspiring. I learned so much about myself, and I also learned a lot about Holy Cross and about Worcester. And just being in Montserrat has kind of pushed me to be the leader that I am on campus, and just getting involved with different types of clubs and just getting my feet wet in all the opportunities there is in Worcester, and just connecting with the community both on campus and off campus. So I think Montserrat is great because it really helps with your personal development, and it really pushes you to be more involved in the community.
I would say thought-provoking. Like I said before, like it really encouraged me to question the world around me, and I brought that into my other classes, and it honestly is a tool that has like greatly changed who I am as a student and as a person, and I really appreciate that about Montserrat.
I'd say I would describe my experience as academically challenging, yet character building. I learned a lot, and I feel like my positive experience in the Montserrat program really set me up to be confident going into my sophomore year, and I'm grateful for that. And I don't know if I would feel as good coming in my sophomore year, being fully in person and living on campus and being involved in extracurriculars, if I hadn't had such a great experience with my Montserrat.
And with that, Connie, I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't have any words. You've certainly shared plenty of wisdom and insight along with each of our panelists. Once again, thank you all for being here. Thanks to our audience for joining us today. It is such an honor to have you all here, to have the Perspective series continue. I hope to see you at our next installment, which will be this coming Sunday evening. We will be talking about student life and organizations. So I hope that you'll join me and my colleague Courtney Lima then. In the meanwhile, though, I hope you take care. I want to say a big thank you once again for everyone for sharing a bit of your evening. Please keep in touch, and thank you for spending some of your time here today. We hope to see you at our next event and wish you a great rest of your evening. Thanks all.
Thank you.